This episode of HaPi has been sponsored by The Soak. The Soak is a private mental health and wellness centre offering best-in-class psychotherapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, counsellors and leadership development specialists. The Soak cover common behavioural health issues such as depression, anxiety and other non-acute disorders, offering family therapy, child and adolescent counselling, offer outpatient treatment for eating disorders and addictions, as well as delivering a broad range of corporate wellbeing services. Please visit thesoak.uk for more information. Hi folks, and we're back for another episode of HaPi Healthcare and Pharmaceutical Insights podcast. Thanks for joining us, whether you're listening or you're watching. It's great that you're with us. I'm with today Oscar Knight, and we're going to continue in our series in the day in the life of. And I'll just leave it at that, and we'll get an intro to Oscar, and you'll understand the day in the life of whatever that's going to be in a second. So, Oscar, welcome. Do you want to give us an intro to who you are, where you live, just a kind of top line, and then we'll get into our discussion in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Colin. It's really great to be part of this podcast and to be invited onto this. So, yeah, thanks a lot. So I'm Oscar Knight. I'm 29, so still quite young in the pharma world. I live up in York, the beautiful city of York in Yorkshire. And yeah, I've got, I live here with my partner Emma. I've got a little dog who's a little cockapoo. It's absolute delight. And yeah, so I'm actually relatively new to the pharmaceutical industry. I've got about 2.5 years total. So I think it's about 18 months as an MSL, and previously as a CAM for a year. So still fresh, still bushy-eyed.
Yeah, good. Listen, I'm still learning as well. I'm 20 plus years in the industry, and obviously in a slightly different role. So you'll continue learning. Nothing wrong with that. You'll continue learning, but you're still very much a baby in terms of your experience in the industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I work with lots of people that have, decades of experience. So I'm learning a lot.
Good. Great stuff. Good. Well, it's great to have you on, and I'm sure we'll have a good discussion. So you've already touched on, we're going to do a day in the life of an MSL, which is Medical Science Liaison. And I was really keen to do this because it's a role that has really evolved in our industry, hasn't it, over a number of years. And most companies, if not every company, has an MSL presence. And I just think it's good for people to get a better understanding of what an MSL does, what you do, and just a little bit of advice that you can hopefully share with some people as well who are maybe considering it. So, as an MSL, give me what your definition, job description, however you want to frame it. What is your definition, Oscar, of an MSL?
Yeah. So if I was to, I guess, define it in one sentence, maybe, it's someone with scientific acumen, an interest, a passion in medical science, specifically, and whose role is non-promotional in nature. And we support a wide variety of stakeholders. So that's both internally and externally. And I guess the aim is to ultimately enhance the field of medicine and facilitate a bit of scientific exchange of information and that kind of thing. So if I was to put it in kind of normal words, I guess, you're an expert in the disease area. You an expert on the medicines that you work with, and you provide training, education for internal colleagues. So that's commercial teams, that's the new starters. You might be supporting medical access and regulatory. You work really across every function within the company, and providing things like medical review and all that kind of stuff. And then externally, when you're looking outside of the company, we're there to provide have meaningful discussions with healthcare professionals, and that can be across all types. So I work in prostate cancer, so I work with oncologists, nuclear medicine physicians, nurses, a huge range, physicists, even massive range of healthcare professionals, um, and we also have involvement in clinical trials. That's another huge part of our role,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, other scientific medical led projects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good.
So yeah, a lot of value, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a lot of value. What was your this isn't part of maybe what we initially agreed to discuss, but what was your background prior to coming into Pharma?
Yeah, so I actually did a physics degree.
Right.
So I've always had an interest in science, but it was never particularly medically related to begin with. And then did my Master of Physics degree, and then in my final year, I had a project where I was looking at nanoparticles
Mm-hmm.
for the treatment of cancers. So
Okay.
how nanoparticles interact with light to destroy cancer cells. And I just really enjoyed it. I found it fascinating, that whole area of research.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I went into doing my PhD in biomedical engineering. And that was also using nanoparticles, but it was a
Mm-hmm.
bit more hands on, a bit more medically related. I did
Mm-hmm.
some preclinical research, that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
So I've got quite a different background, I think, to most,
Yeah.
probably most MSLs that come into it
Yeah.
with the more physics.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true because a lot of MSLs, we've got MSLs that we speak to come from a pharmacist background, or they've got an ology, if you know what I mean by that, as opposed to coming from a physics background.
Yeah.
But no, it's always good to get that little bit of background prior to coming into pharma, because there's also MSLs that are in these roles just now who maybe don't have a science background, but they've maybe been in pharma for a while, and you know the pharma side, the pharma industry has kind of taught them that science, as they've progressed, and then they've moved into MSL role as well. But typically, it does tend to be people coming from a scientific background, like what you've just explained. So, and you've kind of touched on it there just now. So, in terms of your motivation to become an MSL, where did that come from? What motivated you to become a medical science liaison executive, as they're called?
Yeah. So it was actually from my PhD. So I mean, I was doing my PhD, not really knowing where I wanted to go next.
Okay.
It's one of these things. As you grow up, you think you'll know what you want to do, and then every year rolls by and you've still no idea. So I
Oscar,
actually
I'm
got
46 and I still don't really know what I want to do,
yeah
so
yeah
I wouldn't worry about it.
exactly yeah no I don't think anyone really does. Um, but yeah, so I actually got the opportunity to present at a international conference
Mhm,
during my PhD in Boston, and I put loads of time and effort into the presentation to make it really engaging and easy to understand, which I think there's kind of a market probably in the academic world for
mhm,
helping people be able to do that. But I kind of went to Boston, presented my research, and just absolutely loved it. I just found it so enjoyable to be up there, um, trying to explain research to people that don't necessarily know what you're doing.
mhm,
So after that, I thought, right, I need to find things that I can do in this space. I want to like hone my skills in this area. So I joined this not-for-profit organization called Pint of Science.
okay,
I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a global scientific festival that's run
okay,
in cities all over the world. It's all voluntary run, and the idea is that you get local scientists from the local universities into pubs and bars and other areas in the city for like a really informal setting,
mhm,
to present about their research, to the
okay,
public essentially.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I again just loved all of that. So I was like, how can I fit this into my career? Like, how can I do scientific research, presenting scientific research in my career? I
mhm,
really didn't enjoy being in the lab, if I'm honest.
right, okay,
I
yeah,
was in a dark laser lab, cold. It just was not for me.
yeah,
But I love talking about it. So I wanted to find something like that. So I spoke to various different people, and I actually spoke to a recruiter at the end of the at some point, and she suggested the MSL role.
Hmm. Good.
I'd never heard of it before
Right.
until she mentioned it, and I actually ended up going to a conference, the MSLA conference in the UK.
Hmm.
I got my supervisor to pay for me to go, which was
Nice.
always nice.
Good. Good. Good.
Um, and I just spoke to loads of MSLs there, and came away from that conference thinking, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Good. That's good. That's a great story, and I think what you've managed to do is combine your people skills with your passion for science and your passion for medical technology and science, etc. And you brought them both together in this role as an MSL, which is great. And that comes across. I'm sure people watching or listening to that can see that. It probably. I don't think you being in a lab would have probably done you any favors.
It
I
certainly wouldn't.
can see that in your own personality. So you've certainly made the right move and made the right decision to do what you're doing. So and starting to reap the benefits of that. Still early days, yeah, absolutely, we know that, but it's clear that you're in a role that you enjoy just now, which
Yeah.
is so important. So in your role at the moment, how does your role or the role of an MSL work in partnership with the NHS or with people within healthcare?
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I've sort of touched on it already, but we're we're here to be scientific experts, right? So we're here usually with a PhD background, but also medical background or pharmacy background is often the route. But as you said, you can come in through just being in the pharma industry and then deciding
Mhm,
that's where you want to go.
mhm,
But we've generally got a scientific understanding. You can disseminate papers, you can really understand all that complex research. And so, from a healthcare professional's point of view, we're there to really help them understand the medicines, for example, that we work with,
mhm,
and so that they can use them safely, and appropriately in the right patient groups. So I think that's a really key part of what we do. But it's not just one way. So I think we're there to support them, but also we're there to learn from them.
mhm,
They're the experts in what they do.
mhm.
They know the disease area. They've got firsthand experience
Yeah,
working with patients.
yeah.
So we're also there to learn from them, and also and feed that information back to
Mhm,
help support medical strategy within the company. Um, so it's always a two-way thing. I think as well, the clinical trial aspect, I think, is a huge way that we partner with centres and healthcare professionals, because we're heavily involved. Oh, well, I think it probably depends. So again, I've only got experience in my one company, but generally we're quite involved in clinical trials, and we're there to support the kind of be the liaison, I guess,
mhm,
between the healthcare professional, the site, and the company in terms of setting up clinical trials. So, can is the site interested? First of all, can they actually do it? Have they got the
mhm,
facilities available? And then we can help them understand exactly what the research is trying to show, where it's headed, and just be that support between the two,
mhm,
so that these clinical trials go well.
mhm.
That's the ultimate aim, is that we want good trials that with
Yeah,
that's safe. Not allowed to
yeah,
use the word safe, but
yeah, yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I mean.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so there's a multitude of ways, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly the people that you are approaching within NHS, effectively customers. Would you say on the whole that that they're receptive to you? That they're keen to listen to you. Obviously, they're, they're learning from you as well. Would you say overall that doctors, nurses, whoever that may be within the healthcare environment are open to having good discussions with you?
Yeah, it's it. Yeah, basically
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I feel like I'm, as it were, knocking on an open door. These healthcare professionals want to have discussions with me,
Mhm.
um, and I think partly that's because they see me. maybe as almost a peer,
Yeah.
someone who
Yeah.
has
Yeah, I get that.
a good understanding of scientific research, and they know that they can learn something, and we
Mhm,
can have like a really good in-depth conversation. So
mhm,
I think there's always value there for them.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, I think so. Coming from my previous role was a key account manager role,
mhm, mhm.
and it was in primary care in the pandemic.
Right,
So
okay.
I really struggled
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Yeah.
seeing customers during that time, and I feel like it was a bit of a step change moving into this role
Mhm.
between the two. So I think
Yeah.
it's challenging being a cam, but kudos to them.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I mean, because access for key account managers or people who are sales is hard. It's not easy, and key account managers, hats off to them. They're trying to get as many innovative ways of getting in front of customers as possible. Um, and but I think this role is slightly different. It's not necessarily that access is always going to be easy for you, but obviously the nature of the discussion you're having with them is very different. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's good. And do you, just to kind of wrap up this part of it, do you, when you're going to see these customers and the guys who are listening to you, do you always go on your own, or do you tend to maybe partner up with a key account manager or somebody else from your team when you get into these meetings and appointments?
Yeah, no. So because of the ABPI code, we have to be very strict on how we can approach these meetings. So
Of course. Yeah.
I will always be in these conversations on my own, or with other medical team members.
Hmm.
But there has to be sort of a clear divide between the medical and the
Between the two, yeah.
commercial
Okay.
sides.
Understand. Yeah.
So yeah, so we're generally there on our own. But I
Mhm.
think just to kind of touch on the previous point as well, I think part of that code means that because we keep quite separate, we're also able to talk about pre-license
Mhm.
or other indications, as opposed to just the indication for the medicine. So I
Mhm.
think that also brings a lot of value to those conversations as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which the key account managers are not able to do,
Yeah.
because you can't promote off license, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So,
No, no, that's good. That's good information because maybe not everybody's completely aware of that. So albeit that you'll obviously work in partnership with your colleagues, you're obviously you're going in at different times and you're going in on your own, as you say, because of the code of conduct and what has to be done. So good understanding there. Good, excellent. So in terms of, and there'll be people watching this who are perhaps considering going into the role of an MSL. They might be in the application process right now as they're watching this. So I'm sure this will be of value to some people who are in the mix and going through interview for an MSL just now. But what advice would you give to people who are considering going into or moving into the role of an MSL?
yeah. So I've obviously been through that process reasonably recently, I guess,
Hmm.
18 months ago or thereabouts. So first of all, it can be challenging.
Hmm.
If you don't have MSL experience, a lot of roles are advertised as, you need 2 years MSL experience. So how do you get experience if you don't have experience? It's
Hmm.
one of those, yeah, difficult situations. So my advice would be understand the role, the MSL role, as much as you can. If you're going in for your first interview, first MSL role, they will really want to know that you know what you're getting yourself in for. They want to
Hmm.
know that you understand what we do, our kind of day-to-day life. They'll want to know, do you know what the ABPI code is?
Hmm.
That is such a crucial part of what we do in the pharmaceutical industry,
Hmm.
that just have an understanding of what that means and how that applies to promotion of medicines, but
Yeah.
also the medical side. But just understand what is it that we do as a in within the whole pharma industry. Um, my other advice would be, it's the obvious one: work on your CV. I think I iterated my CV, every week probably
Mm-hmm.
for almost a year. So I was just continually editing it, changing it, rereading it, getting advice on it, just completely rewriting sections, but just making it more and more succinct and getting all the right information in there. So and make it scientific as well. I think
Yeah.
personally, so some people say, "Oh, don't make it scientific because if the first person reading it's not scientific, then they might just ignore it." But I think we're scientists and we're going for a scientific role. I think demonstrate that, show that you've got that understanding. So yeah, those two things, and then the
Yeah.
last thing actually would be to talk to recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I really struggled when I applied for roles myself directly with companies, partly because you just may never hear from them.
Mm-hmm.
You apply and then it's just gone into the ether, or you just get a rejection. And you don't know why. There's no real. You don't get anything from it,
Okay.
which I found quite draining. So, but if you speak to recruiters can help you understand. They will understand what it is you're looking for, and they also understand what the company's looking for. So they can they're more in a better position to put the two together, and so you're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to have better conversations with the people that are interviewing you. So
Yeah.
those would kind of be my top three, I think.
Great, brilliant. That's brilliant advice, and very practical as well, because that's what people are looking for. I think when they're looking for advice on these podcasts and other episodes, looking for practical tips and advice of what to do. And I think it's good. Okay, I mean you're still early days into this as well, but you've just gone through the process. You've been successful and gaining that role, so you know what it's like. You know what people are looking for. You know the work that has to go in beforehand, and all of that is good. I think it takes it back in many ways to sometimes stripping it back to the old-fashioned way of speaking to people who are doing the job. Find out what they do, ask what they enjoy about it, ask what's challenging about it as well. And if there's aspects of that that you think, yeah, absolutely, that really resonates with me, go for it. But if there's too many things there that don't, for whatever reason, then it's not the job for you as well. So that's really helpful.
Yeah,
Oscar, this
completely.
this has been great. This a really good snapshot of what you do, what an MSL does, and offering some advice to people who are watching that. So, thank you for giving me some of your time today to discuss it. It's been helpful. I've learned a little bit today as well, and by no means am I an expert in terms of this particular role. So actually hearing it from somebody who's doing the job is really helpful. So thank you very much for giving me time today.
Thank you. It's been really, really interesting and a great opportunity to talk about what I do and help others. I mean, that's kind of what I've always done. So, yeah, it's nice to be invited on. So, thank you.
Good. No, you're welcome, and showcasing the MSL role as well. That's what this has been about. So, thanks very much. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Do continue to watch and listen. Oscar, have a great weekend. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
And all
You
the
too.
best. Take care. Thanks.
Cheers.